Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS fades and sleepers for this week's Masters tournament. Now that we have a chance to take a look at some of the ownership projections, get an idea for who some of the higher owned and some of the slept on lower owned players are going to be, go out there, give you our ownership reaction here. So for our fades, those are going to be some of the higher owned players that I'm maybe not so sold on. And then on the flip side, we've got our sleeper plays, which are going to be some of those overlooked diamonds in the rough that you might want to consider for your lineups, especially in some of the larger field tournaments. This is a much more game theory focused video where we're actually taking a look at where these ownership numbers are, unlike what we do for our core and value play videos, right? A lot of times we're making speculation there when it comes to ownership numbers. A lot of times those players end up being relatively high owned, which is to be expected, right? There's some of the better plays on the slate. But now that we have a chance to take a step back, right? Take a look at the overall landscape of the slate. These are four players, right, for better or worse, that I think you should at the very least keep your eye on there for tomorrow. So let's go ahead, hop on right on in and get this thing started. Alrighty, we're going to start off with our fades, which first up, we've got Viktor Hovland, who, if you've been here on the channel for a while, you know that at any course that requires a stout around the green game, especially when it's an elevated or a major championship sort of test, I'm usually going to be fading Viktor Hovland. And it's not just because of the skill set. He's struggled at a lot of venues like Augusta National. At this golf course is yet to really have a top tier finish, but it's also the ownership. People love playing Viktor Hovland. I call it the Viktor Hovland effect. Guys like Sahith Theegala always get an artificial increase in ownership. Ricky Fowler, for example, Xander Schauffele, and of course the GOAT Tiger Woods typically comes in a little bit higher steamed than we expect because he's such a liked player, right? Such a popular name, especially with some of the casuals. And this week, Viktor Hovland is likely to get that same sort of steam. And then given the skill set problems, it just is going to take me off of him this week. So you take a look at the last 12 rounds, he's actually been okay around the green, definitely not good, right? He's losing nearly half a stroke per round there. His usual self with the ball striking, which is why he is so attractive to people out there in their models. You take a look at the last 24 rounds, so you give him a slightly larger sample size here. Where is he at? $8,500, doing the same thing both off the tee and on approach, then is just, leaking strokes around the green. And it's not just that he's losing 0.4 strokes per round. It's more so that when he gets into contention or when he's having that spike performance with the putter, which is typically the most inconsistent part of his game, a lot of times he throws it away around the green, right? He's one of the players that you see tense up a little bit there on Saturday and Sunday. The three putting tends to go up a little bit. He's not so good with those lag putts. And then at a difficult track, the API has eaten him alive over the last few years. Around the green shots just tend to get even worse for Hovland, right? And he's already a low baseline player to begin with. So $8,500 at arguably the most difficult course around the green at the biggest event, right? The event where you're going to see guys choke the most out there on Saturday and Sunday. I just can't play Viktor Hovland, particularly when I have him at 17.6% owned. Next up, we've got ourselves Corey Conners, who is going to be one of the highest owned players on the entire slate, right? Not just here in the top end of the 7K range or even the 8K range. Up there with guys like a John Rahm, Rory McIlroy, or some of the other pieces of chalk up there in the 8-9K range. He's obviously coming in off a win. He's too cheap considering that pricing came out before the event started over there at Valero. But even with his track record, which has also been ridiculous around here, you can see T6, T8, T10 his last 3 years, I'm not sold on it, right? Not when he's going to be 20.7% owned, because much like a Viktor Hovland, they can ball strike the absolute heck out of it. The issue comes around the green. And for Corey Conners, he's not the most consistent player in that category. We go down here, take a look at the shots gained. You can see he's a slate loser over the last 12 rounds, which of course includes a win. Also a few other events where he's played well. You go down to the last 24 rounds, he's also a slate loser around the green. And though he's gotten a lot more consistent, he's not bleeding nearly as many strokes around the green as he used to. In his first year or so on the PGA Tour, he was one of the worst players in that category. And anytime you get him into a contention sort of situation where the nerves, that pressure is going to be there, he tends to, kind of like Viktor Hovland, fold a little bit. The difference here is the price tag. He's only $7,600, which means our expectations or what we need out of a Corey Connors are much different, right? Something like a top 20 might be more than enough even for some of the large field contests. So I would say that it's a little bit of a harder fade than it is for Victor Hovland. Hovland's a little bit more straightforward for me to make here, but it's all about game theory. You're talking about somebody who in high stakes contests won't just be 20, maybe 22% owned like we're projecting for over here. I'm at 20.7% right now. That is trending upwards, by the way. In high stakes contests, 35, 40, maybe even like 45% ownership you'll see on a Corey Connors in those high dollar single entry contests. So it's really dependent what contest you're in. I'm especially fading him in some of those high dollar single entries. But even in a 150 max large field GPP, where he's only going to be about 20, maybe 21% owned, I still think he's probably worth fading in that kind of format. I mean, do you really want to play 40% Corey Connors? And I know the track record has been great. He's coming in off a win, but this is a volatile, difficult track that really doesn't fit his game, right? He's got the ball striking to play any golf course. I think that's why he has the track record here. But around the green, to really get that top end upside, I think that's why, right? He hasn't cracked the top 5, but still like 3 top 10 finishes, right? It's not like you would even remotely complain about that at $7,600. So we've seen this same thing happen before. Last year, he was chalk. A lot of people faded him. He went out there, finished T6. Year before that, a lot of people faded him. He went out there, finished T8. I think when he was T10, he was relatively low owned, but people caught on fast with Corey Connors. So if you're looking at that course history, which tends to be relatively sticky around here, and you're willing to play 40% of Corey Connors, then by all means, right? Go out there, do so. It's just something that personally I'm not willing to do when there are guys around him that I really like this week, like a Brooks Koepka, who's actually going to be much lower owned there than a Corey Connors. In terms of our sleeper plays, we're going to start off with Shane Lowry. He is $7,900. It's somebody that I thought was going to be relatively chalky this week. I thought he'd get some attention. He plays difficult around the green courses particularly well. The recent form has been there, and I know it's been a little bit shaky, right? That's why he's $7,600, not getting a ton of attention, but still made his last 2 cuts at difficult courses. What it was, API and players, yeah. 2 difficult fields too, right, that actually had cuts out there. And then the earlier part of the fall swing, and I'd say just the earlier part of 2023, right, he was on a real roll. I mean, he was our number 2 guy in shots gained total for a while out there. At the Honda Classic was mega chalk, and deservingly so, there in the 10K range. I think a lot of people are quick to forget, particularly some of the casuals that weren't playing PGA DFS then, how well that he was actually playing. So the shots gain metrics are about average. I'd say about what you'd expect for somebody at $7,900. But when you consider the skill set fit, how well he was playing just a month ago, right? Month and a half ago during that Florida swing, I think he's being slept on there at just 8.9%. You take a look at the event history, it's been pretty damn decent. So you go up here, T3, T21, T25. I know it's not as flashy as T6, T8, T10, but still had a T3 finish, right? He actually cracked the top 3, unlike a Corey Connors. And he has a couple top 25. So I know one guy really stands out, one last week, but you spend $300 more, you get somebody who's almost 3 times less owned, right? A little bit, it's like 2.5 times less owned, right? But still definitely a lot easier to get leverage to somebody that is 8.9% owned as opposed to 20.7%. So the idea here is that you can play 3 guys like a Shane Lowry or 2.5 guys like a Shane Lowry instead of getting to 1 player like a Corey Connors in your set of 150 lineups. And our last sleeper play, I was hiding him on the screen here for a reason. It's Tiger Woods. And I've been kind of dying on this rock this week, telling people that this guy is going to get into contention. And I'll give you guys the argument. I've been brewing on this one for a long time here. At the Genesis, I expected a horrible week for Tiger Woods. You heard that the plantar fasciitis was there. He was obviously still recovering from the injury, and I thought it was just going to be an absolute train wreck. I mean, like 78, 77, get out of there, because the Genesis hadn't been kind to a healthy and prime Tiger Woods, somebody that was winning almost every single golf tournament. He'd go to the Genesis and have a hard time even making the cut sometimes. So for him to go out there and have the tournament that he did, particularly over the first 2.5 days there at Riviera, was outstanding. It was more than impressive to me. The health was there. It looked like, it's a much easier walk than Augusta National, but didn't look like it was bothering bothering him nearly as much as it was there in 2022. And last year, guys, right, he made the cut here. Day one looked really good, right? Outperformed, I believe, of the top 15 players in the world, he outperformed 7 of them when it came to his score there on Thursday. It's not like he went out there and shot like 3-4 under par, right? I think it was like 1 over par, even par, something like that. This year, I think a top 25 is like reasonable to expect from Tiger Woods. And I don't think that that would be wild for me to see. I would not be surprised to see him go out there and finish like T20. Take a look at the event history. It's been a little bit volatile. So obviously has the win in 2019. That's going to stick out. But 47th last year, right? I think he improves on that quite significantly this year. That's why I think he's going to finish in the top 25. But T38, T32, so it's not like he always kills it around this golf course, but we know that he has the strategy down here. The swing looks like 100%. I got to see it in person at the father-son event. Got to see it, of course, on TV for some of the match events that we've seen of late. Obviously saw him there at the Genesis, and I'm willing to say at 6.7% projected ownership, that I'm willing to get leverage there. Now, a few things to note about the ownership number. This is likely going to be low, right? You know, I was mentioning before that certain guys like Victor Hovland get a lot of steam. Well, Tiger Woods at Augusta National is like that on steroids. So almost you want to double this projection. I almost want to say that he'll be like 10 to 12% owned. So if you're going to get leverage there, just make sure to maybe play 20 to 25%. That would be my recommendation to you. Now, he's not going to be mega chalky, but, you know, at least the algorithm thinks that he's going to be mega low owned, right? Per the metrics, it does incorporate a player's popularity into, projecting this. And that's essentially why he's only 6% owned, right? If we were taking that out of the equation, he'd be like 0.5% owned. Because, I mean, look at the shots gained compared to everyone else around him. The numbers on bent grass, right? He's number 77 out of what? It's like 88 players in the field when it comes to the total model ranking. So it's essentially all going to be because it's the GOAT, but just a few of those breadcrumbs that we've seen, I think the swing looks a lot better than most people will give him credit for. I'm willing to take a stab, and like I said, 20, maybe 25% of my lineups. Alrighty, guys, that is all I've got for this week's fades and sleepers. Before you hop on out of here, go ahead, comment down below your biggest ownership fade of the week. There is a caveat there. Has to be somebody that's projected to be at least 15% owned. So, look at your ownership projections. Hopefully they're mine on the Patreon that you have access to, but whatever set of ownership that you're looking at, pick somebody that you're going to avoid 15% and above, and let me know why you're fading that player. If you want to give me a sleeper play too, feel free to go ahead and do so, but the fades are always interesting to hear about, especially, some of the reasoning behind your fades, because it's tough, right? You want to play everybody up top in GPPs, but that is just not reasonable. So go ahead, let me know your reasoning up there. Would love to hear it. And also, we'll be going live tomorrow night. That'll be Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure to stop on by with all of your questions. We'll touch on the weather, all of our last second ownership notes, strategy, props, if you guys have questions over there. And also, I do have a link down in the description of the video to go ahead and join the community contest. This week, it is going to be 100 entries to try and accommodate everybody. The original community contest I run just weekly was nearly filled by the time I checked it here early Tuesday morning. So definitely think we're going to be able to fill that contest, especially when I go ahead and toss the link down there in the live stream. So make sure to reserve your spot now if you want to make sure to get your spot locked in and get a chance to have your lineup reviewed on Monday. Mondays, if you guys haven't been checking them out yet, first off, what are you waiting for? But we do weekend review streams where we go through all of my results, all of your lineups in the community contest. We talk through some strategy, some of the ownership trends that you may have noticed between some of the contests week to week. And overall is a really good way to kind of put a bow on last week's action. So if you want to have your lineup reviewed on there, you want to hear my thoughts on how you went out there and built, make sure to go ahead and get in that contest. But like I said, guys, I appreciate all the support here on the channel. Smash the like button if you haven't already. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of that content when it drops. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow for that live stream.